Welcome to the show, everybody. I am Chris. This is the Pleb Life podcast. The podcast where, just like every other podcast, I'm going to talk about, current events, news, politics, and more. However, unlike the others, this is going to be all from the perspective of the poor. Hence the name Pleb Life. I am merely but a simple pleb. But I am here to talk all kinds of shit and give you my point of view. So, oh, I got a word from our marketing team. Yes, what can I do for you, ma'am? There's head of security back there. For those of you listening, my staff is coming to me with a problem at one of the most inopportune times. What can I do for you, ma'am? Yeah. She was laying down this whole time, by the way. Okay, Pleb Life, the show where we bring you the perspective of the poor. What is poor? Well, by the 2025 federal poverty guidelines here in the United States of America, for a household of one, that would be 14 grand a year, 14.5 grand a year. You make less than that, then you are officially poor. For a household of two, 19.7. You make less than 20 grand a year, household of two, you were poor. I gotta say, those numbers are low. Um, 14 grand a year. The average one bedroom apartment is pushing like $1,100 a month here in California. How I lived in Las Vegas, during the pandemic, uh, and I made just about as much as I got unemployment. They had that $600 a week unemployment. Well, I was working in maintenance at the time and making about that much. Single guy living walking distance from the strip in a one bedroom apartment this apartment was built in like the 40s or the 50s. Like it was made out of stone. Anyway, I think that was the rent. I was paying like $900 a month for a really, really rundown apartment, old as dirt. And if you did the math on that, that's $1,215 a month. If you're paying $900 a month for an apartment, let's just say you got a deal, right? You're paying $700 a month. That leaves you 500 for vehicle insurance, food, gas, lights. You got a pet? No. Anyway, I was making damn near 40 grand a year and I was still struggling, you know. No vacations. I wouldn't say struggling. I was able to buy groceries. It was okay, right? Maintaining. But I got a toothache once, had to pay out of pocket for that because the insurance doesn't cover everything. And my dog gets sick, there you go. There goes your whole budget. But anyway, these are the federal poverty guidelines. So for those of you living out in Rio Linda, this is basically just something that the U.S. federal government puts out. These are numbers. I think they just come up with the back of their head. Somebody's in the back room. They got a couple of interns back there, and they're just like, what do you think poor people make? I don't know. Let's just come up with a number. A household of four, 30 grand. Jeez, that's not a lot. Car payments now, I'm hearing car payments are like 1,100 $1,200 a month, just as much as your rent. So you got to be making 22, 23 a month just to cover rent and car insurance, gas. Anyway, a little bit too much of that. So I've got some bullet points lined up for you today. So I have here in my formerly nicotine stained fingers some bullet points of a couple of things I want to share with you guys today. So I think first I'm going to get into. I want to talk a little bit about the new press secretary because that girl is a freaking boss. I've been watching clips. I finally tuned into a whole press conference because usually they don't really hold my interest. Yeah, I'm real interested to hearing what people's opinions are about, uh, whoever's in charge, whoever's in power at the moment. I like the right versus left dynamic. It's real interesting. However, I don't. I lose interest, listening to a speech 10, 15, 20 minutes into it, like the State of the Union speech. Doesn't matter who's on. Uh, it's a lot like to me the State of the Union speech. Whoever is the president at the time, it's a lot like the Grammys. It's a bunch of rich, privileged, elite people patting themselves on the back for what they did for each other. Anyway, so we're going to talk about her for a few minutes and how she's handling the press, give you a couple of video clips of that. Then I want to give you a little quick rundown on what I might take about this measles epidemic going on, uh, just real quick. And then maybe talk a little bit about the water situation here in California. Not too detailed because that situation has been going on. It's a lot like the wars in the Middle East. It's just been going on my whole life, and so the info on this topic is so muddy. It's so pun included, pun intended. It's just so chopped up, and so many people have opinions on top of opinions on top of opinions that you can't really find facts unless you're just solely dedicated and spending all your time and effort trying to find out what's really going on. That's not what I'm doing here, guys, ladies and gentlemen. This is not a news station. This is a poor person talking shit about the news. Before we get into all of that, I want to give a special shout out to these guys right here, StreamYard. Without them, I wouldn't be able to have this little fancy little format we got here. Yes, I am using the free version with the watermark, but that is just because we are not officially monetized here at the Pleb Life podcast just yet. We will be soon enough. We're heading that direction slowly but surely. Progress, striving every day to be better than we were the day before, ladies and gentlemen. See this fancy hat and this nice little clean shirt that I got on here. This is stuff that I made. No, I'm not actually on the factory floor putting all this stuff together. That's a design of mine. Carve Your Heart Out is the design label, category, the name. Anyway, if you like what you see, you can buy yourself one. For those of you listening on the podcast, it's t-shirts and baseball caps at centralcitypm.com. That is centralcitypm.com, and I will do my best to put a link for that down in the description below. Check that out if you got a minute. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the station. Hit that like button. It's really all I give a shit about at this point. It's going to really help the show. It'll tell the algorithm, hey, somebody's watching and they liked it. Right? And it gets my show shared. Without your likes, without your subscriptions, the show is just a drop in the bucket. You may or may not know, I am a one-man show currently at the moment, so I'm going to try to do my best to not give you guys any dead air, and if so, I'll try and edit it out. First thing I wanted to touch base on, first topic I wanted to talk about this morning is our new press secretary. It is a stark difference from her predecessor. Not only in the way that she carries herself in general, but the answers are they seem to have a lot more depth. She does a lot less of, well, you'll have to ask somebody else that question. It's I don't know. She has. I have heard her or seen her say, oh, I'll have to direct you to the department of so and so for that answer, but not nearly as much as the last the last young lady that was up there in her position. Uh, just to give you a little idea of what I'm talking about, the differences. Let's just I'm going to play a little clip that shows the first few minutes of each of their um, time in front of first few minutes of their job.
I am obviously acutely aware that my presence at this podium represents a few firsts. I am a Black, gay, immigrant woman, the first of all three of those to hold this position.
How are we? Good to see all of you. It's an honor to be here with all of you. A lot of familiar faces in the room, a lot of new faces. And President Trump is back, and the golden age of America has most definitely begun. The Senate has already confirmed 5 of President Trump's exceptional cabinet nominees.
So right there, you can just see a really big difference in their intros. The first one was, first of all, I'm going to start with telling you guys about me. Me. The second one is, first of all, I'd like to start out by saying how much of an honor it is to be here with all of you. So right then, right out the gate, I gotta say that was good, excellent. But it didn't stop there. Every day I see something new that's just mind blowing. She's not backing down. She's not stuttering. She's not uh, trying to candy coat any of her answers. I've seen her literally say, "Hey, you're making a face. What's up?" As a matter of fact, I think I got that clip right here somewhere.
To the woman in the purple, because I saw you were making a face at my previous answer. So what's going on?
Oh, did I?
Well, actually, I have a
It's
couple
gonna
of
be this
questions.
lovely young lady
I
here in the
think for all the
purple.
Palestinian protests on college campuses and elsewhere is a demand to end the war in Gaza, a goal that this administration actually supports and has pursued. So why has this not been acknowledged or highlighted even?
Because these colleges and these protests have again put out Hamas propaganda. The flyers that have been distributed call for violence. The flyers that have been distributed have the logo of an organization that has held Americans hostage, that murdered innocent babies, that murdered men, women, and children. They are a designated foreign terrorist organization, and we are not going to tolerate non-citizens, foreigners who come here on a visa engaging in such behavior, siding with terrorists. And the Secretary of State reserves the authority to revoke the green card or the visa of an individual who serves as an actually, it says right here, reasonable grounds to believe that the alien's presence or activities in the United States would have potentially serious adverse foreign policy consequences to the United States. And I think siding with Hamas makes that quite clear. Secretary Rubio exercised that authority, and we fully believe that we are going to move forward with more arrests, as President Trump previewed in his statement yesterday.
I like how she didn't back down. She didn't stutter. She just answered the question thoroughly.
On the economy, you and I traveled the country
I don't
during
know
the
what's going on
campaign.
right now.
This is an issue.
Now, as far as her answer goes, I'm not sure I agree completely with that. I think that there are going to be. I think that there are more factors involved that the media isn't pointing out about this individual, whoever it is that they're talking about. Now, if I'm correct, they're talking about how a college student is being, not only is he being expelled, but he's being deported for handing out flyers at a rally, at a protest, um, in favor of Hamas. I believe it is, which is, I guess, a designated terrorist organization, at least in this country, and everything that she said, right? So, okay, I guess I can agree with that statement in and of itself. However, what about the Nazis? What about all of those people who hand out flyers and have their own, they're allowed to have their own social clubs. Um, are they getting kicked out of school? I'm not even sure if they're actually any of them in school, but yeah, are they getting kicked out of school and deported? So again, I am very impressed by her demeanor, the fact that she is not eating shit from the press. They do their stupid little games where they keep asking the same question over and over, just different ways. She'll point it out and say, "All right, guys, stop. You keep asking the same stupid question. You're gonna get treated like you're stupid." I like that. I really do. I'm a big fan of matching people's energy. So yeah, I'm a big fan of her calling out the media and matching their energy by giving them, giving them stupid prizes for their stupid little games that they play. Especially the NPR guy. Did you guys catch NPR first row just giving just he couldn't help himself. He got all emotional. Like, check this out. I'm gonna play this little bit for you just so you can see what I'm talking about. She just doesn't back down.
later this year.
I'm sorry, have you ever paid a tariff? Because I have.
That's
They
it.
don't get charged on foreign companies, they get charged on the importers.
And ultimately, when we have fair and
What are you
balanced
importing,
trade,
bud?
which the American
I think we need to
people
be
have not seen
investigated.
in decades, as I said at the beginning, revenues will stay here, wages will go up, and our country will be made wealthy again. And I think it's insulting that you are trying to test my knowledge of economics and the decisions that this president has made. I'm now regret giving a question to the Associated Press. Mary.
Bitch. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt has slammed an Associated Press reporter. The exchange came during a White House press briefing where Ms. Leavitt was asked about Trump's administration's tariffs. A reporter from the Associated Press had questioned Ms. Leavitt if she had ever paid a tariff. Ms. Leavitt responded to the journalist with a heated response, claiming tariffs are a hike on foreign countries and a tax cut for Americans. When we have fair and balanced trade, which the American people have not seen in decades, as I said in the beginning, revenues will stay here. I think it's insulting. You guys already saw that. The music they have is all dramatic. Exchange has response online as users take to social media to respond to Ms. Leavitt's comments. Some users have praised her shutdown of the AP reporter, questioning journalists' behavior. This asshole. Some asshole on news. I can't read it. It's too blurry on my screen. Anyway, I think you get the picture. This woman's a rock star. No, actually, the last one was a rock star. What's her name? Kaylee McEnany. She was like, at that time, I hadn't seen a press secretary kick ass as much as Kaylee McEnany did back then. She was a whole different style, right? So I would say that so there are two main ways to gain a competitive advantage in anything you do, right? There's either you do whatever it is you're doing, you do it better than the competition, and that's how you gain your advantage, or you do it differently, right? Um, which of course has to be worth something. So either do it better or different, right? And Kaylee McEnany was this side. She was the one who do it. She did it better than any other press secretary I had seen before. She came with a book full of receipts. She kept a positive attitude and didn't back down. And she had an answer for every question. They gave her the same question 6 different times. She gave them the same answer 6 different ways. She was on it all the time, right? And then Karoline Leavitt comes along, and she's a freaking boss. She does it differently. You know, after the third question, the same question, she's gonna call him out on being stupid and tell him, "Hey, you know, stop being stupid, or you're not gonna get to come back next week." Basically, taking control of the room has probably been her biggest advantage so far. Because I see people all the time who are always wrong, constantly wrong about everything, but because they are able to take control of the room and the situation and the conversation, they win. So keep up the good work. Can't wait to see the next press conference. Moving on, moving on. I can't talk about this woman all day long. There's other things going on in the world. Have you heard of this measles outbreak going on in Central Texas? Is it Texas and New Mexico, I believe? There is a outbreak on the measles right here. New Mexico, Texas. I think they have a. California's got 3, 1. So all these reported cases of measles, right? And it's being reported as bad. Measles is a highly contagious vaccine preventable disease. Measles is a highly contagious vaccine preventable disease caused by a virus that primarily and most severely affects children. According to the World Health Organization, it affects the respiratory tract before spreading throughout the body. There's a lot of respiratory diseases going around. The virus is one of the most contagious infectious diseases to exist. So contagious, in fact, that 90% of unvaccinated people who are exposed end up contracting it. Additionally, 1 in 5 of those people end up hospitalized. 1 in 5 people get hospitalized from the measles. And it goes on to talk about all of the symptoms and whatnot. The CDC has a really short statement that was released February 27. How it continues in close communication with Texas health authorities. Measles outbreaks are occurring globally, particularly in Asia, which means that there is an increased likelihood of among unvaccinated travelers. Why would that mean that? Why does that mean that? Does it mean because people in Asia don't bother getting the measles vaccine? Or is there something else? Like, there's a big chunk of information missing from this paragraph right here that we're just it's like implied knowledge, common knowledge that I'm not privy to. Maybe somebody leave a comment down below about what this means. Measles outbreaks are occurring globally, particularly in Asia, which means there is an increased likelihood of cases among unvaccinated travelers returning to the U.S. So if you're unvaccinated, you go to Asia, you might get it and come back and bring it back. Huh? Measles does not have a specific antiviral treatment. So there's no treatment, but there is a vaccine. Now, this is the first time in my life that I've ever heard of measles being deadly. There's a pretty well-known podcaster who's got something to say about this, and I want to just go ahead and listen to him and play off of what he says.
So there's a big hysteria right now that's being manufactured by the media that's owned by Big Pharma about measles. Now, when I was a kid, nobody freaked out about measles. In fact, kids got happy when they got measles. And I'm going to prove it to you.
Happy?
Here's from a network television show called The Brady Bunch. They all get measles. Watch
Brady
this.
Bunch.
Peter, what are you doing home from school? They sent me home. Measles.
Hang
It's either
on.
measles or a strange case of red freckles.
What are you doing home? Mom, the stay-at-home mom doesn't know that her kid just got sent home from school. That's how it was back in the day. They told your kid to go home, and they let them go on their own without any. You're contagious. Get out of here and find your own way home.
I have got a temperature. They told me 101.1. What's the record?
Never mind.
Oh, are you sure it's the measles?
Well, he certainly got all the symptoms. A slight temperature, a lot of dots, and a great big smile.
A great big smile.
Great big
No school for a
smile.
few days.
Say hello to my dotted son for me. Tell him I'll bring him some comic books, and I'll see you later, dear.
Okay, honey, bye.
Boy, this is the life, isn't it? Yeah. If you have to get sick, sure can't beat the measles. That's right. No medicine.
Inside or out? I like shots on me.
Don't even mention shots. Yuck.
That was how people used to treat getting the measles. Like it was a fun couple of days home from school and you didn't have to take any medicine for it. Kids would kind of self-immunize themselves from the measles by having it. Having to run to the doctor to get another injection for every single thing, that's not progress. That's called propaganda. So that's how the TV used to present measles.
Check
Now,
this out.
this is how the TV, which has now been bought by Big Pharma, is talking about measles. You ready?
How do you feel?
I'm fine. Dad says I should go to school.
7 students confirmed with measles, 4 others possible.
Hear the dark, ominous music.
These moms never vaccinated their kids and lied about it. Vaccines are
These
harmful.
kids have the measles.
Every child in this city. Liv, no, it's turning blue.
Liv. What the name is that?
All new SVU next Wednesday at 9.
Oh my God, measles! Oh my God, measles!
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The modern outlook on the measles is much, much different than your parents' outlook on the measles was when they were young. I'm sure that most of them now will agree with CSI. But anyway, I just wanted to point out, that nonsense. I don't think it's necessarily nonsense. An epidemic is a serious thing, but their approach to it, the scare tactics that instead of trying to calm people and tell them what they can do to mitigate these their chances of contracting the virus, are scaring you. Anyway, I am very confident that the people that live across these fruited plains from coast to coast are smart enough to know when they're being played. One more topic I want to get to before the show is done is here in California, right? I set up shop here in Central California, and my entire life here in Central California, we have I have heard about water wars and the water. There's been a drought. There's always a drought. My whole life there's been a drought. I'm 40-something years old, and every year there's a drought here in Central California. No matter how much it rains, how much it snows, doesn't matter. There's always a drought. And finally, as far as I know, it's never been really addressed at the national level. It's just a local issue. Even though that the crops grown here in this area feed the whole world, basically. But the farmers here are left to fend for themselves as far as water goes. Typically, it's collected in north of the state, up in the mountains, in the coastal regions, and then by way of the California aqueduct, it's shipped to the rest of the state. It goes through Central California down to Southern California. People in Central California say they need the water to grow. People in Southern California say we need the water to drink. But the only issue, well, not the only issue, one of the major issues about this situation is that once the water reaches LA, once it reaches Southern California, it's not collected. It's released into the ocean. Now, that's the water that makes it. Most of the water, I would say, when I say most, I'm saying more, 51% is already released before it gets down to LA. And then once it gets to LA and past its southern communities, it's released into the ocean. They don't collect it. They don't ship it back up north. They don't circulate it in a circle around and around until it's gone. They dump it, right? That's been a problem for the people here in Central California. Like, we could have used that water kind of thing. Let me give you a little. Let me give you some perspective about how the state felt about this prior
There's a big
to Trump's involvement and then after. Okay. Okay. So at this point in the game, the federal government has stepped in, more specifically, the administration. And for those of you in Rancho Cucamonga, the administration is its own entity. It is involved. It's so the current administration would consist of the president, the vice president, their cabinet, secretary of this, secretary of that, all of the people who were appointed by the president, as well as his staff, his internal staff of the White House. Aside from that, the federal government operates separately. So they can take on causes, but in order to have any kind of lasting effect or make any kind of measurable change, they would need the federal government to back them up, right? Unless, of course, uses executive order, which in itself creates a whole bunch of problems. So right now, this is CBS News, Bay Area. After Trump, this is about a week or two after Trump releases, or after Trump demanded that the state of California release their water, all the water from the north to the south. So here's a clip of after Trump gets involved.
2 dams in the Central Valley, just as promised.
The president says over the first 3 days, 5 billion gallons of water will be released. John Ramos spoke with an expert who says the move actually doesn't help anyone.
It's times like this, when winter storms are causing the rivers that feed into the California Delta to run high, that water managers hope we can capture and store as much water as possible for the dry summer months. And that's why so many people are scratching their heads over what President Trump just did. On Friday, President Trump posted an announcement showing a photo of the, quote, beautiful water flow that I just opened in California, end quote. By executive order, he directed the Army Corps of Engineers to open the floodgates at 2 dams in reservoirs in Tulare County. In a statement from Washington, D.C., the Corps said, quote, consistent with the executive order, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is releasing water from Terminus Dam at Lake Cahuilla and Schaefer Dam at Lake Success to ensure California has water available to respond to the wildfires, end quote. But there are a few problems with that.
And apparently, Mr. Trump felt that that was going to help Southern California. Number one, those rivers aren't connected to Southern California. That water will not get to Southern California. And number two, that's water that the Corps was holding for farmers to irrigate with next summer. Releasing it now when it's raining doesn't do anybody good, except it creates the very real risk of potential flooding.
Barry Nelson has his own reasons for being angry.
Okay. So, why is he releasing water? It's not going to help. We're keeping that water. We're saving that water to dump it later. Okay, so just hold on to this. Put a thumbtack in those thoughts right there. And let's see. So now, let's see what CBS San Diego has to say from 2 years ago. Right? CBS, California, I mean, of course, these are different local news stations, but it's CBS, the national news network, talking about the same topic from the same state. Only this was when Biden was president.
Millions of gallons of water that could have been used to help ease San Diego's drought conditions are instead heading to the ocean. Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us.
What?
I'm Marcella Lee. When the city released water from Lake Hodges earlier this year, it went to fill other reservoirs, but not this time. Instead, this water is gone for good. So what happened? CBS 8's Steve Price went to work all the way to the city.
This is what they're
looking
doing.
for answers.
This is the normal
At a time
practice.
when we're being asked to conserve water, the city of San Diego is releasing nearly 250 million gallons of water out of the Hodges Reservoir, not into
We're not allowed to water most days of the week here in Central California. There's a lot of water restrictions that we have here that we can get in a lot of trouble if we break. If one of our neighbors, or if you decide to snitch on one of your neighbors, you can get some people here, some homeowners, in some pretty deep trouble if you snitch on them about their water usage, right? But they're dumping it.
Storage areas where it can be used later, but instead into the San Diego River, where it'll be gone for good. Chopper 8 caught part of the release on Monday as the water started spilling out of Lake Hodges. The city said past rainfall and a state mandate made the release necessary, citing safety reasons. The lake has been closed since the spring when repairs started to the 104-year-old dam to fix cracks and defects. But here's the thing. In order to make those repairs, earlier this year, the reservoir level was lowered by approximately 18 feet, and the city said no water was wasted in the process of lowering the water level. So that got us wondering, why is water being wasted this time? We reached out to the city with an email at 9:06 this morning asking if someone
could have released the water to the people.
At 10:20, they wrote back saying, checking with public utilities staff and we'll get back to you ASAP. At 12:50, the city's communications department wrote back saying, I have not yet heard back from public utilities. As soon as I do,
We'll let you
I'll
know.
let you
We'll
know.
circle back to that
We
later.
then reached out to the mayor's office to see if they had any answers, and his communications manager responded, I will let the folks in public utilities know there are technical reasons that I'm not the best person to explain, but they'll be in touch with Steve. Finally, at 3:57, the city reached back out to us saying no
Wonder if
one
Steve's
from
called
public
back yet.
utilities could give us an interview, but they did release a statement saying due to hydraulic constraints, the San Diego County Water Authority's water pumps cannot transfer water to other reservoirs when the water level dips below 280 feet. Well, in order to safely do the repairs at Lake Hodges, the water level was dropped to 275 feet. So the city confirmed all of the water released this week is heading to the ocean. At Lake Hodges, Steve Price, CBS 8.
So there you go. That's a before and after of how the local media feels about the water situation. As long as Trump is not involved, yes, it's a freaking problem. They're dumping water in the ocean. Who the hell thinks it's okay for the salmon people, the freaking salmon commissioner, to dump water in the ocean? Like, right? But no, because Orange Man Bad is involved now. It's not going to do anything anyway. They didn't say the water got dumped into the ocean, but so water getting dumped into the ocean is a problem, but then water getting released to the people is also a problem. Oh, but now that we've gone all deep into down the rabbit hole of water, let's just go ahead and lighten up a little bit. So one of my lifelong mentors always taught me that if you can't laugh at yourself, you really have no right laughing at anybody else. And I've kind of lived by that. I'm a big fan. I'm also, have you seen, speaking of, have you seen those JD Vance memes? I think I'm going to put together a little bit on that as well. They're hilarious. They just don't stop. They just keep coming. Adam Carolla, letting you know.
All right. This is stuff that rich people and poor people have in common, but not the middle class. So it's only super poor and super rich. And there's more in common than you think, but the middle class need not apply here. All right. So I thought of this bit when I was writing for late night, and I thought about the concept of an outdoor shower. And I thought, if you're taking an outdoor shower, you're either super rich or busted poor. You either buy the cabana on the table, you buy the tennis court and the pool and everything, or you're in front with a hose, sitting in a tub and a dirt lawn. All right, so rich man, poor man. All right. Greatly affected by the raising of the minimum wage. You either own 28 Taco Bells or you work at one Taco Bell. Either way, it is impactful. Drives a brand of car that no longer exists. You're either Jay Leno in a Duesenberg or my stepdad John in a 74 AMC Matador. When you enter a fancy department store, somebody who works at that department store rushes toward you yelling, "May I help you?" Rich man, poor man. Never eaten at an Outback Steakhouse. That's me, ladies and gentlemen. I was far too poor. During my construction days, I could not afford to go to an Outback Steakhouse, and now I'm far too wealthy. That's for the little people.
That was Adam Carolla doing his rich man, poor man bit. I'm not going to show the whole thing as I don't want to steal his thunder. I was just trying to highlight that the man is still funny. After all these years, it's very refreshing to see a comedian who's still willing to make fun of the elite. It seems nowadays most comedians are scared to say anything that might get them canceled. So that's all I've got for you guys today. If you've made it this far, I want to say thank you for joining me in this podcast. If you've made it this far, I want to say thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Again, this is the Pleb Life podcast. I will do my best to keep bringing you my opinion and keep talking shit about everything that's going on in the world today. And until next time, see you then.
That without my TV. No, but seriously, bring the TV.